Welcome back to Never Enough Novels for a look at the best new books coming out in May 2025. I think I have more books this month than any other new released video that I've done so far this year because there are so many books coming out this month that I wanted to share with you. I have these all sorted by genre, so I have a few romances, one thriller, a couple new fantasies that I'm really excited about, and even some general fiction books for you this month. I'm going to put the links to all of these books down below so you can grab them from Amazon or Target and help support this channel along the way. And make sure you hit like and subscribe so you can see more of these new book release videos in the future. Since there are so many books to get through this month, I'm going to dive right in, starting off with 4 new romance books. Up first on the list is The Love Haters by Catherine Center. She is one of my go-to authors, so I'm always excited for whatever new book she has coming out. And this one is perfect for summer because it takes place in the Florida Keys and features a lot of sun and sand and waves. Katie is our main character, and she's fighting to keep her job as a video editor, so she takes this assignment that sends her down to Florida, and she's supposed to do a recruitment video for the Coast Guard. Except for one small problem, she can't swim, and that is a necessary part of this job. Her manager sends her down to interview this local hero who is a member of the Coast Guard, and it turns out that it's his brother, but they don't exactly get along, which is why her manager did not want this assignment himself. Katie arrives down in Florida and meets Hutch and realizes he's not only this incredible person, he's also extremely handsome. And as she spends more time in Florida, she realizes it might be time to finally get over her painful past and address her fears. I read an early copy of this, and I didn't think it was Catherine Center's best work, but I do know other readers that absolutely loved the easy breezy writing and some of the wild turn of events that happened in the book. So if it sounds like something you'd be interested in, then definitely give it a try. My next romance book is called Left of Forever by Tara DeWitt, and I've only ever read one other book by this author. It was called Savor It, and I absolutely adored it, so I'm excited to see what else she has in her catalog. And this book, Left of Forever, picks up with some of the characters that we met in Savor It, so I'm also looking forward to getting back to their story. It sounds like it can be read as a standalone, but we did get an introduction to these characters in Savor It, so I'd probably recommend reading them in that order, but if you are more interested in this story, I think you could pick this one up pretty easily by itself as well. Our main characters in this one are Ren and Ellis, and they were childhood sweethearts who fell in love when they were kids, had their son Sam, and were raising him together in the small town where they live. However, things eventually fell apart, and when we meet them, they are separated with very little hope of getting back together. They're in their 30s now and are officially divorced, and Ren runs a local bakery in town, and Ellis is a firefighter. Things change for them, though, whenever they move their son Sam into college, and Ellis convinces Ren to take kind of a rambling road trip back home. And they basically see this as an opportunity to give their relationship one last shot and see if they can get through their issues and their differences to find the love that they had when they were younger. So we follow along with them as they go on this road trip down the gorgeous California coastline, and this forced proximity, makes them actually spend time together and get past some of the surface level interactions that they've had in the past. So Ren is starting to see that maybe it is possible for something to actually bloom between them again. But the past keeps coming back to haunt them, and they still must face down these issues that caused their separation in the past. But one soul-bearing letter might be the difference maker for these two. I am not always a huge fan of second chance romances, but since we got to know these characters a little bit in the Savor It book, I'm excited to see how they might be able to find their way back to each other. And I think the setting of a road trip, along the California coastline sounds like the perfect place to explore this. One of the romances I'm most excited to read is called What Happens in Amsterdam by Rachel Lynn Solomon. This is an author that I feel like has flown under the radar a bit, and I think she deserves a lot more attention than what she gets. Both her young adult novels and her romance ones are phenomenal, and one of my favorites by her is called The X Talk, so I highly recommend that one as well. But her newest one is set in Amsterdam, which I think is particularly neat because Rachel herself moved to Amsterdam recently, so she has a lot of experience in the city, and I'm excited to see how her interactions in the city will kind of filter into this book. Her novels are generally really well plotted, they have a lot of great banter, and just the perfect amount of spice in them. This is another second chance romance, and it features 2 high school lovers who now find themselves in a marriage of convenience as adults. Danny is desperate for a fresh start when she moves to Amsterdam, but things didn't exactly go as planned there either, and now she needs a visa in order to stay in the city. She literally runs into Wouter, her high school boyfriend, who lives in Amsterdam. And after talking to him for a bit, she discovers that he is in need of a wife in order to obtain this inheritance from his family. So the two agree to get married as a mutually beneficial arrangement. And even though the marriage is a sham, it does force them to spend a lot of time together, which opens up new feelings. They quickly realize the chemistry between them is still there, but is it a good idea to actually fall in love with your spouse? Again, even though this is a second chance romance, which is not normally my favorite trope, there are enough unique elements of this one that I'm really excited for, and I think this is going to be another fantastic adult romance from Rachel Lynn Solomon. My last romance for May is called It's a Love Story by Annabelle Monaghan. And this is another romance author which I feel deserves a lot more attention than what she gets. Her novels are so relatable, and they often feature women more in their mid 30s, sometimes who have kids and are facing very real life problems. I adore how she manages to craft these swoon-worthy romances while also having her characters deal with very understandable problems and choices that they have to make that feel very realistic. It's a Love Story takes a little bit of a different turn since it has a celebrity aspect. Our main character is a former childhood star. Jane is now trying to set herself apart from that past, though, and be taken seriously as a producer in the movie industry. When she gets a little bit desperate to have her first project greenlit, she makes a claim that she can get pop star Jack Quinlan to write a song for the movie. She does have a history with Jack, it's just not necessarily a good one. And now the only person who can help her follow through on this claim is her former crush and now extremely annoying cinematographer Dan. So now Jane must spend an entire week with Dan in his hometown as they try and convince Jack to do this project, but the past keeps coming back to haunt them all. I will definitely read anything that Annabelle writes, so this is another one that is high on my list, and I know she just knocks it out of the park with her love stories. The only mystery or thriller that caught my eye this month is called The Missing Half by Ashley Flowers. And I absolutely adore the cover of this one. I love the movement that it has and its simplicity. And I've heard a lot of good early reviews from this missing persons novel, so that's why I wanted to share it with you. When Nick was a teenager, her older sister disappeared without a trace, and she's basically spent the last 7 years of her life since that event, kind of wandering aimlessly and without any sort of purpose. Kelsey's car was found over 100 miles from where it should have been, and her purse was left behind, and the police had no clues about what happened to her, so the case quickly went cold. And the only real connection was a similar missing persons case happened 2 weeks earlier in a very similar set of circumstances, but again, without any evidence to go on, both of these cases were closed and nothing has ever been found with these two women. When the sister of the other young woman who disappeared finds Nick and gives her some new information, there's a spark of hope with both of them that they might be able to actually find out what happened all these years later. So the two of them team up to try and follow this lead and see if they can figure out what happened to their sisters. I feel like in some ways this sounds very similar to other missing persons cases where two amateurs are now kind of tracking down clues and trying to figure out what happened. But like I said, I've heard really good reviews of this so far, so it's high on my list to get to. Then let's move on to a few fantasy books that are coming out in May. First up is Shield of Sparrows by Devney Perry, and I got an advance copy of this thanks to Red Tower Books and Entangled Publishing. And this one had not been on my radar at all, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to actually read it or not because it's 500 pages. But I picked it up one day in order to give a review, and I read it in 27 hours. So I literally finished this 500-page book in just over a day because it absolutely hooked me from the very start. It was a really unique fantasy, and that's what I loved about it so much. So our main character is Odessa, and she's a princess for one of the kingdoms, and her sister is meant to be married off to a neighboring kingdom in order to fulfill this old peace treaty called the Shield of Sparrows. But on the day of their marriage, the neighboring prince decides to pick Odessa instead as their new queen. So Odessa is now thrust into this role that she was not expecting to have. And she finds out from her father that her father has been expecting her sister and training her sister her entire life to spy on this neighboring kingdom and try and get some information that they think they're hiding. So now Odessa has this responsibility that she was not expecting and is not at all prepared for. And she is terrible at like everything that she does. So normally I feel like fantasy heroines are like incredible fighters and really good spies and all of that. And Odessa is not that person, which was just so refreshing and relatable. So she travels to Tura with her new husband and his guardian, who is his kind of right-hand man and this like renowned fighter in their land. But Odessa's husband, the prince, is very distant and hardly ever talks to her, but the guardian is around all the time and just constantly like teases her and annoys her. As she spends more time with these people and in her new land, she discovers that they have been trying to fight off these horrible beasts that roam the land, and some of them are infected with some sort of poison that makes them even more vicious and ruthless than normal. As she learns more about these people and this land and what they're facing with this new poison that is spreading through these dangerous beasts, she starts to understand that maybe her loyalties to her father and her father's intentions aren't as noble as what she would have expected. So Odessa is kind of left in this interesting situation where she has to decide whether she wants to continue feeding her father information or trying instead to help the people of Tura figure out what is causing these beasts to go rogue and how she can help them instead. I would say this is a mix of fantasy and romantasy. Like, there's definitely a lot of slow burn tension between Odessa and the Guardian, which was so much fun to read. But there's also a lot of fantasy elements that I really liked about this one as well. And it focused a lot more on that aspect and how they're fighting these dangerous beasts instead. So I cannot recommend this one highly enough. This was an easy 5 stars, and I am like desperate for the next book in the series to figure out what's going to happen next. So out of all the books on my list this month, this one is the one that I can easily recommend the most. The next fantasy that I want to recommend is called A Fate Forged in Fire by Hazel McBride. And if you're looking for more of a dragon fantasy, then this is definitely going to be the one for you. It initially caught my eye, not only because of that dragon element, but also because it's a Celtic-inspired fantasy, which I thought was a really unique twist. Besides those two things, as if you needed any more reasons to try it, it's also going to be just part of a duology, and I am loving this trend in fantasies lately of books that are part of duologies. So it's just enough of a chance to get a little bit more of the story than you would find in a standalone book, but it doesn't involve a huge time commitment like some of these series that are like 6 or 8 books long. So for a quick summary of this one, basically to become the first queen in centuries, a powerful blacksmith must use her wits and fire magic to overthrow the corrupt powers ruling her kingdom, while also fighting her growing desire for one of her dragon-riding adversaries. I feel like this one might be really good to listen to on audiobook because you're getting all of the actual like Celtic pronunciation of these names and places, so I'm probably going to butcher these in this full-on description. But once a territory that was built on matriarchal rule and values, Tir Teen has since grown frail under a line of fruitless kings, the most recent of which have ruled under the influence of the True Religion, which is an oppressive group that basically does not want to have magic within the realm. Our main character is Amira, who is born to rule, but has lived in hiding to kind of protect herself from this ruthless court. And she is waiting for the king's death so that she can bond with his dragon and basically take over her rightful place on the throne. But when the king dies, her plan is foiled and she's thrust into a game of politics instead. Her biggest adversary is Prince Fiorian, who is a dragon rider and one of the most powerful fire wielders in the territory. And he comes from a corrupt family and is basically everything that Amira despises. But when chaos ensues in the court, they find themselves forming kind of a reluctant alliance. So Amira is now struggling to work with her biggest adversary and also fighting against these feelings for him that start to develop as they spend more time together. And as they continue working together, they find out just how far the corruption has spread within this land and what they might have to sacrifice in order for her to reclaim her throne. I think everything about this one sounds incredibly fascinating, so this is probably going to be the next fantasy that I end up reading. The third fantasy book and the last one for this month is called The Night and the Moth by Rachel Gillig, and I'm actually currently listening to this one on audio right now. I had previously read Rachel Gillig's One Dark Window and Two Twisted Crowns duology, which I absolutely loved and highly rated that one. So I was looking forward to her new kind of more gothic-inspired fantasy in The Night and the Moth. And so far, it's definitely slower, so I'm having a little trouble kind of getting into the story and sticking with it. It definitely feels different from One Dark Window, but if you like a little bit of a slower start and more of kind of like a gothic mystery, then this one might be good for you. Our main character is Sybil, and she is one of 6 diviners, who are these like revered and protected women who go through a process to drown and dream, and they are able to discern a person's fate through their dreams. But when her fellow diviners start to go missing, Sybil realizes that she must take a leap of faith and step out of this life that she's known for the past 10 years and try and track down what happened to them. Unfortunately, the only person she can think of to help with this quest is a young knight who had visited them not too long ago with his prince. While he was there, Sybil had tried to discern his future, but during the dream, she wasn't able to see anything definitive. He was the first person that she'd met who didn't have the same like dream sequence that she was used to, and he basically, while he was there, like made it very well known that he did not believe in this whole process and the gods that they worshipped. So when she asked him for help, he agreed reluctantly, but she kind of sets off on this journey with him and his prince and a few other knights, and they clearly have their own side intentions. They're like tracking down these objects as well, but with them as her only option, she agrees to kind of help them with their project while they try and gain more information about where these fellow diviners went. So like I said, the world building and like the general concept of this story isn't as intriguing to me as her last fantasy, but I keep sticking with it for some reason, so I'm a little over halfway through the audiobook now, and I'm curious to see kind of where the story plays out. And lastly, our 2 general fiction books that have been getting a ton of buzz this month, so I definitely wanted to share these today. The first is called My Friends by Frederick Bachman, and this is one of those authors that I will read literally anything he writes, no matter what it is. He has become one of the most beloved fiction authors with his incredibly thoughtful yet approachable stories. And honestly, the premise of this one, My Friends, doesn't sound incredibly appealing to me, but I trust him enough that I know it's still going to be worthwhile to give it a shot. As a quick summary, the book is about 4 teenage boys whose bond was so powerful that it completely changed a stranger's life 25 years later. The story seems to jump back and forth between 2 timelines, so present day and then 25 years earlier. So in present day, we have a young artist named Louisa who ends up in the care of this astonishing painting, and it's kind of harboring a secret that she seems to notice but which is often overlooked, and that in a small corner of this painting by the ocean, it shows 3 young boys who are sitting on a pier. Since she's eager to uncover more about the story behind this little noticed section of the painting, Louisa sets off on a journey to try and discover who these boys were and the town where they grew up and figure out how they ended up in one of the most recognizable paintings in the world. So then in the other timeline, 25 years earlier, we meet this group of boys who basically come together over the course of the summer. They're all trying to escape rough houses or rough family situations, and the time that they spend together on this abandoned pier is just like a respite from everything else in their lives. And throughout the novel, we discover what happened during that summer all those years ago and how happy endings aren't always exactly what we expect. I've also seen a lot of early reviews for this one that are just raving about it. So I have put it on hold at the library, and I'm definitely going to get to it as soon as it's available. So I think anything by Frederick Bachman is highly recommended for me. I still loved Beartown probably the most out of all of his books, but since this is his newest, I'm eager to give this one a try as well. And the last new book release for May that I'm going to share today is called The Names by Florence Knapp. This originally popped up on my radar because it was a Read with Jenna celebrity book club pick. If you're interested in these celebrity book clubs and want the spoilers ahead of time, I come out with a video every month, usually a few days before the end of the month, so you can get some insight into what the book clubs are picking before it's officially announced to the public. But back to The Names, it's a literary fiction novel that is incredibly intriguing, but has a really simple concept at its core. And it's basically asking the question of like, how much impact does your chosen name have on your life? So the novel takes that concept and expands it into basically like a thought-provoking experiment. The story starts when Cora takes her 9-year-old daughter and her new infant son to officially register his birth. When she's asked what name is to be given to her son, she hesitates. So her husband, the local town doctor, has basically demanded that their son take his own name. But she knows something that the rest of the town doesn't. Her husband is basically this controlling and terrifying presence at home, and she doesn't necessarily want her son to have that legacy following him throughout his life. From this split-second decision, the novel splits into 3 alternate timelines, and in each of these timelines, Cora gives her son a different name. So we see a glimpse into the lives of Cora and her son and how they vary based on the name he's given in each different one. Over the course of 35 years, the author explores the ripple effects of that single small decision. And along the way, she also offers commentary on domestic abuse, our autonomy, and our ability to heal from our past. That wraps up all of the best new book releases coming out in May. Like I said, there are a ton of options to choose from. So let me know in the comments which ones you're most excited to read. I always love hearing from you guys and seeing what else is on your TBR list as well. If you want to check out last month's best new book releases, you can head here to see April's video, and make sure you like and subscribe to my channel to see all of the best new book recommendations by month in the future.